If you've ever been lucky enough to have a Chicago beef sandwich, you know they're incredible. But lugging around a sandwich all week for meal prep, it's not the best thing. Plus, we dip them. That's the whole point. So it doesn't work. Let's take that flavor base and turn it into a bowl. Nice bed of rice, giardiniera, some nice top sirloin seared and sliced up with some au jus. I promise you, you're gonna love it. It's gonna be great. Here's how to make it. Begin by washing your rice. We want to get all this starch off here. You're going to rinse it 2 to 3 times, fill it up, agitate it, drain out the water until the water is clear. Once your rice is washed, set this aside, let it soak for about 45 minutes, and we'll get started on making the giardiniera. First step of getting our giardiniera ready is chopping all the veggies. We're going for a dice on these, everything but the garlic, those can remain whole. We're going to keep the seeds on the serranos, de-seed the jalapenos, peel the carrot. Now that all the veggies are chopped, time to make the brine. It starts with 1 cup of white vinegar and 1 cup of water. Into that, we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. Put this on the stove, bring it up to a boil just until the salt all dissolves. Once all the salt has dissolved, add in your teaspoon of black peppercorns whole, as well as a teaspoon of coriander seeds. Then, take this whole mixture and pour it over the veggies. This works great in a mason jar, but stainless steel mixing bowl works as well. Set this aside to rest for at least 10 minutes, but longer is fine. It'll last for up to a week in the fridge. For our au jus, we're going super simple today, and we're just gonna combine all ingredients directly into a saucepan here, and then bring it up to a simmer. Now, you can go as complicated as you want with this, but honestly, this is the best bang for your buck here. We just go in every ingredient, and there is no need to be super precise. You can eyeball it, not a problem. It'll come out tasting great, so don't worry about it. Once everything's in a pot, bring it up to a simmer, cook off all the alcohol, reduce it down a little bit, stir it occasionally, and this will come out tasting great. So now we get to the meat of the recipe. And this is a whole top sirloin. You can get these, I get this at Costco Business Center, but you can find it at most restaurant supply stores. And it's a lot cheaper than buying sirloin at a grocery store. And it's really not that hard to break down. And I'm gonna show you how to do it right now. We're gonna start out by removing it from the packaging. And I like to do it in a way that try to save all the drippings that stay in there. No one's perfect. If you spill a little bit, clean it up, not a big deal. Once you have the roast out of the package, cleaned up, patted dry, I'm just gonna look for any large fat deposits. Sometimes, usually on this end, there's a pretty large fat deposit here. This one's not too bad, but just come in there and remove all that fat. We don't need it, and we can save it and render it down for as tallow later. After you get that fat off, what we're gonna do first is remove the picanha, which is this section. You can see there's this nice seam in here, and you almost don't even need a knife, just barely doing any work with the blade, just separating these out. Where the natural seam is, we're just gonna pull apart and just help out a little bit when needed. Now the picanha is actually a wonderfully great cut of meat. You can cut steaks out of it, I'll show you how to do that. It's considered one of the best cuts on the cow. And if you try to go to the butcher and buy some, you will be paying an arm and a leg. But if you do it yourself, it's as cheap as these sirloins are. And once you get right to the end here, all we're gonna do is run the knife through and cut the picanha clean off. And boom, there's your untrimmed picanha. So now we're gonna go through and we're gonna trim it up. Got this real thin part here. We're just gonna take off the edge. And remember, all this fat is not going to waste. We're gonna render tallow out of it, and any of the meat trimmings that we're gonna have, we're gonna make ground beef out of. And I highly recommend you do this. This is how you can start to save a lot of money in your weekly meal prep, is by buying things in bulk and butchering your own meat. We're gonna clean up this silver skin on the underside here. Now this is really simple. You just come in, knife parallel to the meat, just make a shallow incision, trying to take off as little meat as possible, and then you come back to the other side like that. I didn't get it all the way, but that's the general idea here. And we're just gonna go through and do this for all this silver skin. If you think this might be a waste or that it's too much effort, this is gristle. This is what sticks in your mouth and you chew for hours. You don't want to eat it, so don't put it on there. Let's take it off now. Let's let the knife do the work so your teeth don't have to do it later. Now you're going to leave this fat cap on, mostly so we don't make the Brazilians cry. But really, it's because it tastes amazing and this meat is pretty lean and the fat cap helps balance it out. It's great. When cutting steaks out of the picanha, you want to cut with the grain. That's not normal, so don't start doing that on your ribeye roast and everything. This is just for a picanha. As you can see, the grains are running this way, so we're gonna cut our steaks out in the same direction. I like cutting mine, I wanna square it off first. Let's give a nice square cut there. I like making mine 1.5 to 2 inches thick. That way, nice, good, thick cut, get time to have a good sear on it without being so big that you burn the outside, overcook it. For me, that's my middle ground. That's my happy place. And boom, there you go. Now you got some steaks for your week. Back to the rest of the sirloin, we're gonna remove all this hard fat on here and silver skin. Now that this whole thing is cleaned up, we can go to slice our steaks. Now you can see the grains are running this direction. Now we're gonna slice against the grain. That's normal, the picanha is weird, remember. So I like to use my big old slicer, 12-inch slicer for this. It's easier, you can get all the way through the roast in one easy motion. Now, you can break this down further, you can take off, I believe it's called the baseball cut and all that. I don't find it necessary for this recipe. Just go in, get off all the fat, cut these nice big steaks, and we're gonna sear these up, and this is where our meat is gonna come from. Now, you may have noticed in the beginning, this is actually a select, USDA select quality. Now, usually you get choice at the grocery store, and select is one lower than that. And the caveat is, select, obviously, is one cheaper than that. Now, this meat is very lean, which is usually undesirable when buying meat, but it means it's got a lower fat content, and it doesn't matter as much for us in this scenario because we are putting this in a recipe with a lot of other flavors and a lot of things going on. If you were eating these steaks just on its own, nice steak dinner, yeah, you're gonna notice it's a little tougher, it's not as juicy as you want it, those things. It won't matter for what we're doing. And it's a great way to save money on your weekly meal prep. All right, now we're gonna take one of these great sirloin steaks that we made and we're gonna salt it. Both sides, nice kosher salt. Don't be afraid to go heavy here. Kosher salt, due to the size of the granules, it's really, really hard to oversalt something, honestly. Plus, we're gonna throw this in the pan sear it. Most of that salt's gonna come off on the pan instantly, so really, you can't oversalt it. Use kosher salt, salt it heavy. Once we get our pan ripping hot here over medium-high heat, add in some avocado oil and go down. Now, we're gonna keep searing this, flipping it about every minute or so until the internal temp reaches 115. After a rest, that'll give us a perfect medium rare. Once the meat hits an internal temp of 115, we can go ahead and pull it off, set it to the side, and let it rest. This is where, if you're doing multiple steaks, you would start working on your second one. I got my pan a little hot. I'd probably let it cool down, clean it off, restart, but do that as many times for as much meat as you need. Once your steak has had a chance to rest, now we can slice it. Pretty good. Don't be afraid to undercook these, by the way, since you're probably gonna microwave it to warm it up anyways. It's okay if it's a little undercooked. I like to do about 1/4 inch slices here, and then come back at the end and slice them into smaller pieces. Just make it a little easier to chew, a little more manageable, and easier to track the macros. All right, now it's time to assemble. Start by laying down a bed of your white rice. Next, top with your sliced sirloin steak. Next, go over top with a nice healthy scoop of that au jus. Maybe a little more because it tastes amazing. Finally, top with your pickled giardiniera vegetables. As little or as much as you like. Now, it's my favorite time of the evening when I get to dig in. I want to get a little bit of everything on there. Cheers. So much beefiness paired with the acidic, spicy giardiniera with that au jus mixed in over the rice. This is incredible. This is exactly what I'm craving every week, and I guarantee you, you'll love it. So please go check out the recipe, try this for yourself, and I promise you'll love it. Make sure to like, favorite, subscribe, comment any questions or suggestions for recipes that you have, and I'll see you guys next time.